Hey there, everybody. Sorry for the short delay. We ran into a couple technical difficulties getting set up, but we're all ready to go for the fifth session of Admin Training Week, Summer 2014. We've got a really great session today on Google Apps Script with James Ferreira of Apps for Gaps, who I'll introduce in just a moment. Thanks again for all of you who are joining me. I want to just quickly recap or quickly talk about Google Guru and Admin Training Week, and then we'll let James get started with his presentation. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen once again and start the presentation. So, just an introduction for those of you who are joining us for the first time of the week. My name is Andrew McGonigal. I manage the Google Guru site. If you're not familiar with Google Guru, hopefully the vast majority of you are by now, but Google Guru is a free training resource for Gmail and Google Apps. There's a lot of information available for admins as well as end users, so I would definitely recommend checking out the website to learn more. And a lot of our content is authored by different companies and individuals who are experts in Google Apps as well. So if you're interested in becoming one of those people who contributes to Google Guru, you can go to googleguru.com/contribute. One of our main methods for getting out our updates and tips and tricks is through our daily newsletter. So you can register for that at googleguru.com/register. There's a lot of great tips and tricks there. It's a great resource for admins, but it's also a great resource for end users. So if you're an admin and you want to proactively train your users, I would definitely suggest the Guru Daily Newsletter to them. So you can find that at googleguru.com/register. Like I said, this is the fifth session of Admin Training Week. If it's your first time joining us, we have Google Apps experts throughout the entire week are going to be joining us, sharing their best practices for managing Google Apps, their domains, as well as end users. And if you're interested in learning more and would like to register for the rest of our sessions, just go to admintrainingweek.com. The rest of our sessions are there, so you can click on those links and just go ahead and sign up just like you did for this one. We also have some free giveaways that I'm sure you're aware of, so the free t-shirt and ebook, as well as the drawing for the Nexus 7. So if you have a moment, please go to googleguru.com/ATW15. That's ATW15, and just take a moment to fill out this short form, and this will allow us to take down your information so you can claim your free t-shirt, your ebook that we'll distribute after the week is over, as well as put you in the running to win the Nexus 7 tablet. So, please take a moment to fill out that form. If you've already filled one out, all the information should be pre-populated, so you won't have to do any extra work. All you need to do is just go ahead and click submit. So, I'd also like to mention, if you are interested in asking questions during this session, please do so through the Q&A app inside the Hangout on Air. I'm going to be filtering through these throughout the presentation and relaying them to James, or go ahead and answering some of them myself. So that's the best way to ask questions. Yeah. And if for some reason you're having trouble adjusting the video quality of the presentation, if it's a little too fuzzy for you and you can't adjust it inside the Google Plus event, you can click on the YouTube logo at the bottom right-hand corner of the video player, and that'll take you to our YouTube channel. You can watch it there, where you should be able to adjust the video quality. So with that being said, I'd like to go ahead and introduce our next presenter. Today we have James Ferreira, who's the founder and CEO of Apps for Gaps. James presented during our first Admin Training Week, and there was a lot of interest in having him come back on, so James has decided to do another presentation that's a little bit more advanced, and it's called Google Apps Script Filling in the Gaps. So, James, I'm going to go ahead and turn the presentation over to you if you want to go ahead and get started.
Okay, great. All right, everybody, let me throw on my screen share. Hope everybody can see that. We get that working.
Yep, you're good.
Look good, Andrew. Okay. Thank
Yeah.
you, Andrew, for having me back again. Definitely. Should I switch that back so you guys can see what I look like? Um, it's great to be back. There's such Google is such a fun area to work in, and I've been an admin for a long time, and then working in the industry, and just seeing Google evolve over the years. It's really awesome to be able to take part in trainings like this where we can really further what everybody knows on that. So I just want to say hello to everybody to start off, and then let me just let me go ahead and now click into the presentation here. And I'm James Ferreira. I'm the CEO for Apps for Gaps, and we're a development company, and we develop exclusively on the Google Apps platform. And what we do is and the whole idea behind our name is that we fill in the gaps in Google Apps, and you'll if you've been an admin in a Google Apps domain for more than about 10 minutes, you realize that you have a lot of users out there that are already asking you, well, why doesn't it do this, or why can't I now do that? And so we found that there's a lot of things that people, especially in business, want to do that just don't exist in Google yet. And so what we do is we try to connect the dots and put together solutions that help you help your customers and your users better use Google Apps. So um, we're very passionate about what we do. A lot of us are top contributors on the help forums. If you go off to find help on a certain API or something with Google, and you're on a help forum, you're likely getting answers from one of the top contributors. There's a bunch of us, but specifically we help out on the APIs and app script and areas like that.
Hey, James,
So
can I
that
stop
brings
you
me
for a
in with the
second?
people that really do care. Yeah, sure. Am I?
Your mic sounds like it's cutting in and out. Is there something you can adjust there?
I wonder if it's not the mic, but the connection. Yeah, no, it's a Chromebook, so there's no real adjustments there. Is it still cutting out, or is it?
Yeah, it's going a little in and out. Um,
Okay.
do you have anything else?
It might
Anything
be
else
because
open
of the
or?
screen share.
Okay.
Well, no, nothing else is open. It might be because of the screen share.
All right.
Because
Why don't we?
better.
Sorry. Go ahead and keep talking. Sorry,
Yeah,
so I can hear
does it
you.
sound better now that the screen share is off?
Yeah, it does.
Yeah. Okay.
Why don't I go ahead and share my screen,
Definitely.
and
Yeah.
we'll do it that way.
Yeah. So everybody's just I'll be talking, but you'll have to click on Andrew's
Yeah.
screen to see the slides there.
I'll just give me 1 second to set that up. Sorry about this, guys. This will just take one more second. Let me just grab this presentation here. All right. Um, all right. So I'm going to go ahead. I'll show my screen here, everybody. Um, so James, you may need to help me out just a little bit.
Yeah, no problem. I'll just tell you when we can go to the next slide.
All right.
No big deal. So skip down a couple, just past the one with me on it. Next one, yeah, there we go.
This one right here. All right.
So a little bit about me. I'm the CEO of Apps for Gaps, and we before that I was in state government. I worked for the New Mexico Attorney General. I was the CIO there. So I've worked heavily in the corporate world, government, so very regulated, lots of administration. And so, I definitely know what it's like to be an admin on a Google Apps domain. I think we were one of the very first state agencies to move to Google Apps. So went through the whole process. This was before there was even partners, so no help at all. But just we were able to migrate over, and it's a solution that they're still using today. So they're very happy with what happened there. I've also written a couple of books with O'Reilly, and one of the ones is there off to your right there, Google Apps Script. Programming book. It's meant for kind of the mid-level. If you have a little bit of programming experience, especially in HTML and CSS and JavaScript, then you should be able to pick up the information in the book pretty easily. If not, a little bit of time on some JavaScript would be really helpful before starting into that book. And definitely, yeah, the geek you're looking for. So let's go to the next slide there, Andy. So what I think you're going to find, or what we hear from our clients, is that they've moved over to Google, and now they have a lot of these legacy applications that are running on servers. They might be something like Lotus Notes or SharePoint, and or it's something to do with Gmail, and their users are coming to them and saying, well, I want to be able to move this application over. I want it to all be in one place, or it's coming from the admin side or the administration side, where they're saying, we don't want to have servers anymore. We want to have everything in the cloud. And so you're stuck in the middle there, trying to figure out, okay, well, how are we going to move this stuff over? And, what's that going to look like? And, and those kinds of things. And what we find a lot of the time is that, people will pick a certain platform or a certain solution, and it doesn't necessarily, either it doesn't scale the way they expected it to, so they get a few records, it works great at first, and then they get a few records, and suddenly it's too slow to even be usable and things like that. So what I was hoping to do is spend a few minutes here and kind of go through some of the different solutions that we recommend for our clients that help them make the right decisions on which kinds of Google platforms to use, because there's a whole lot of stuff out there. It's not just app scripts or app engine, but there's a lot of different things you can do and reasons why you might want to do those. So I'm going to just try to spend a few minutes and give you that kind of overview of what's possible and what's a good choice in a lot of different applications. So let's head to the next slide. So some of the first questions you need to start asking when you're moving applications over or trying to extend what Google does is, does it store any data? How much data would you like? A UI with that. So that's really important. I mean, most of the time you're going to need some kind of UI, whether it's a menu in a spreadsheet, or it's something like that, or it's a full-blown web page that's data-driven, or even an application that's a web application that's capable of running on mobile devices and everything else. You need to know what that looks like up front. Typically, it's going to have a UI. How many users and who has access, and how are you going to control the security? Because that's something that's really important. I mean, when we're looking at it from the administrator role, security is kind of one of the number one things we always want to look at. And we really like Google security because it kind of puts the load on them to make sure that it's functioning well and that kind of thing. And they do have an excellent security model, probably the best in the world. Let's go to the next slide. Okay, so there's a few different platforms that we like to basically build on in Google, and the appropriate one we'll go over a bunch of use cases later, but there, just from a general overview, you have AppScript. And
hey, James.
Yep.
Can you make sure that your mic volume is turned all the way up?
Yeah, it is. There's no way to adjust it on a Chromebook.
Okay. All right.
I could try to hold the mic a little closer to my face. Does that help at all, guys?
It's a little bit louder.
Okay.
Yeah. It just seems it's not cutting out anymore, but
But it's just not loud enough. Okay.
It's just not loud. Yeah. So if you could just speak up.
I'll yell at y'all. How's that sound?
Okay.
Okay. So AppScript.
Sorry about that, everybody.
AppScript is it's weird because we used the same exact setup last time. So it's kind of it must be those solar rays that we were hearing about last week, right? So AppScript it's a platform that's built inside of Drive essentially, and what it does is it gives you, it's a full development platform. It's got it's written in JavaScript, and it has a lot of API access. It's deeply integrated into everything Google. So if you want to access Gmail, AppScript has deeper integration into Gmail than any other API that's provided by Google. So you can go right down to the message level and get into everything you need to with that. So it's a really, really great back-end system that can be used to glue just about anything Google together with other components. So we use that a lot in things like if your spreadsheet needs to send out email reminders, then that's definitely the product to use. It's right in a lot of situations. Where it's not right is in massive data application. It's built to be, it's called AppScript, and it really is very, very powerful. But it also has some limitations. So for instance, you can only process things for 6 minutes. So if you're crunching a bunch of numbers and a bunch of data, and it's going to take longer than 6 minutes to do that, or you have some kind of service that's going to return that has to go collect a bunch of things and it's going to run, then you're going to hit that timeout and your script's going to die. So you have to look at time, size, those kinds of things. Size is pretty much the most important thing to look at when using AppScript. It also has some other limitations on the UI where it will only allow you to do certain things because it's restricted by a service called Caja, which is a sanitation service. And so those also play into what you might be able to build on the front end. App Engine is basically Google's super server in the cloud, right? So it allows you to build just about any kind of application, and it can scale to massive sizes. One of the really big differences between AppScript and App Engine is AppScript is free, it's included in your account, and App Engine is a paid-for service. It does have some free access, but if you're using it the way it's intended to be used, you're going to be scaling up to very large data applications, and that's definitely going to be on a paid-for model. So finding out where your app lies in between those two is really important. Is it big enough, and should I be looking at a paid-for solution for those kinds of things. Google Drive is something else we've been seeing a lot of use with, and it allows you to host files publicly just like you would on any web server, and you can serve up those files and write them in your traditional JavaScript and HTML and CSS and create entire websites and drive them there, and then connect those to backends that are also on Google. So another place to host things. You can host things on your own server too, and still connect to Google services. The APIs are quite robust, and they allow you to work through all those different areas. So those are kind of the platforms that we typically use because we do focus on Google specifically. So those are the larger platforms that we'd like to use. So let's skip to the next slide. All right, so let's get into a few of the data storage solutions, because that's kind of, most of the things you're going to do are going to have something to do with data, and you need to know where to store it. So our number one recommendation for anything corporate is always going to be Cloud SQL, and the reason why is it is a paid-for solution, but it's not very expensive. For as far as storing data goes, it's actually quite inexpensive. Typically, it's a pay for usage type model. So you're just paying for what you need to. There are some packaged models as well, but we typically do the pay-as-you-go. It is a little bit harder sell, especially if you work in a PO environment, because you don't really know your upfront costs, so you kind of have to estimate those, and that can be difficult for some of the accountants to take. But they do have some of the package models too, that you just want to make sure you're choosing a package that's big enough to fit your need. It is a solution that has automated backups. It does replication, and it will store pretty much as much data as you can imagine wanting to store in the cloud. So that's typically our number one database solution. ScriptDB is something that was inside AppScript, and it's been deprecated and will be going away later this year. So if you already have some applications out there that you've built on ScriptDB, or that someone's built for you on ScriptDB, you definitely want to get that data moved out of that as soon as possible and onto one of the other platforms. We have some methods for doing that. We're helping a lot of customers that jumped into that when it was still experimental and have data stored there, and it's critical to their business, and we're helping them move over to different solutions. So don't don't build anything or let anybody build anything for you that's built in ScriptDB, because it's a service that Google is getting rid of. Google Spreadsheets is another great storage place. It has 400,000 cells, so if you think of it as a database, it's quite a few records. And it's it has the one really nice feature that it's free. It's already part of your domain. You already know how all the sharing works and how all the setup works. It's just a spreadsheet. It can be really handy when you have people that work in spreadsheets and you're wanting to feed that data directly into their what they're used to using. So that's something we see very common. Spreadsheet as a database is something that I would say is probably 50% of what we see out there. One of the other areas is Google Fusion Tables. Great service, has huge amounts of storage. They say unlimited cells, lots of characters per cell. It also has some really amazing mapping features, and allows you to do visualizations and things like that from the Fusion Tables UI. So if you're doing a lot of geo stuff, then that can be an excellent solution too. And we like to say anywhere else you like as far as storing your data, because you can certainly store things on your local server. The only problem there is you need to make sure that the local server provides a way of connecting to the internet, because Google is out in the cloud, so it has to, it still needs an authentication scheme, of course, to get to your data, but it has to be available to the internet. So that's something that we also do. Let's hit the next slide. Okay, so when you should use certain storage. So with Cloud SQL, what we always recommend is it a large data set, and if losing the data is going to lose you your job, you should probably consider something that's Cloud SQL, primarily because of that backup feature. It does allow you to, and you can back up and you can download. So it'll save 7 days in the standard version. You can save 7 days worth of daily snapshots. So you can roll back and then also download that information and get it out of there, reload it. So it's a great system in that respect. Plus, it's highly replicated and highly available. So the chance of actually losing your data is we've had clients that are already a year into their SQL databases and have never had a single issue. So it's really a great system. Google Spreadsheets. If you've got smaller data sets, what we like to say is if you have less than 3,000 rows in your spreadsheet, then that's probably going to work out pretty well for using it as a database. If you're going to go over that, then it's going to get a little bit slow because it does take time to retrieve that much data from a spreadsheet. So Fusion Tables, really nice. It allows you to do queries. So you can use SQL type language to query the Fusion Tables and get back results that way, so it's less parsing of the data like we have to do in a spreadsheet. And then again, anywhere else you like. So because we can connect to just about any kind of database, so if you want to put your stuff on Amazon, then that's something else you can do as well. So choosing storage, primarily look at size and look at the reliability, and then choose the right solution there. Let's go to the next slide. So the front end UI. So anytime you're building an application, it's going to have the data. That's really important. You got to have some place to store that information. But then you're also going to have some way of your users interacting with that information. And so there's a couple different solutions that Google has out there that allow you to build those. One of them is AppScript has a built-in what's called web app service. Or called HTML service traditionally inside the code itself, but we call it a web app, and it uses HTML and JavaScript and CSS to produce a web UI. It's hosted inside Google AppScript, so it has a Google URL, and it's something you can, when you set up the script, you'll see a couple of those later. I'll give you some examples. When you set them up, they run immediately. You control access to them. and they're quick. They're great. They really, it's you don't have to worry about setting up a server, figuring out how to map, URL to it, and get that through, the different loopholes with the firewall and everything else. It's just, it's very quick and easy to set up and very powerful. It does have some limitations, like I'd mentioned. There's the Caja service, which will not allow you to run most JavaScript libraries. So there's some Google hosted libraries that are safe that it allows you to run. So jQuery and jQuery UI, those kinds of things are safe and in there. So those do work, but most other things are still very limited by Caja. So it's really it has some drawbacks. The Google Site Gadget is another UI that we see pretty commonly. So if you're running your intranet off of Google Sites and you want to add some data to that comes out of either Drive or perhaps you have spreadsheets that you want to do that are going to show graphs and things like that, and you want to put that all into Google Sites for your users to be able to consume that, then AppScript has a way of sticking those gadgets right into a Google site, and it's very straightforward to do that. The spreadsheets or documents can have AppScript can add menus to those, so you can create a custom spreadsheet that if your users, if they have all kinds of things that they want and they want menus up there, so they can click a menu, a custom menu, and click another item to do something, then you can modify that spreadsheet in just about every way possible, or documents, those kinds of things too. So adding those menus is really a big feature that we see a lot of when people are doing a heavy customization of spreadsheets. Let's do the next slide. So the Google Drive hosting is something that we've just, it's kind of new. I think it's been out for about a year, but actually hosting files there and doing some reliability tests with it, we're finding it's a pretty good solution. It's available. It does allow you to write in just your standard HTML. You don't have to worry about Caja, those kinds of things. If you want to back it up, you can just go to the folder and zip it up and download it. So it has some backup features. Of course, you have all the Google revisions and things like that. And the other nice thing that we really love about it is there's a few editors out there that allow you to edit these files online. So you don't have to, you can work from a Chromebook if you'd like, and you don't have to have any kind of local IDE to do your development. So that can be really handy, and working in an environment that you're used to if you already work in HTML. So one of the next UIs we specialize in is the Google Addons. So this is if you've spent any time at all in spreadsheets and documents, you see a new add-on menu up there that allows you to put these third-party apps into your documents and spreadsheets. And so that's another deployment method that's also really great for the domain, because you can build an add-on that's domain specific. You don't have to release it to the public. It can just be something that if you want all your users to, in your domain to use that, then you build one that's just that, and it's only seen by your domain, and everybody can easily access that. And that's kind of the other thing is deploying any of these applications has also always been kind of a challenge, right? So, figuring out how to get everybody on the same page. So add-ons, if it has to do with spreadsheets and documents, then add-ons is an absolutely excellent delivery method for your domain applications. The next UI I want to talk about is App Engine. It's probably it's the super powerful, does everything, UI producer. I mean, even games like Angry Birds is built on this, and the huge scale, huge amounts of customers, can handle millions of people at a time, and it scales up. But again, it is something you got to pay for. So that's how it works. You can run your UI off your own server. We have a few customers that do that as well, where they want their files hosted locally, and then we help them make the connection to backends that are running on Google. So that's the next slide.
Hey, James, before we move on, it looks like we've got a few questions about, you've mentioned the term Caja a few times, and I think a few people aren't quite familiar with what that is. Do you mind just explaining it for a
Absolutely.
second?
Let's back up with that one because that's one that trips a lot of people up. And so here's what Kaha is. Kaha is this service that Google. It's one of those interesting like divisions of Google. I've never actually met anybody that works in Kaha, but it does exist. So so what it does is it's a sanitation service. So it will go through any web page and it will strip out anything that it doesn't know about. So Kaha's got its own, we could call it a database of safe JavaScript, of safe HTML, and what it's supposed to look like and how it's supposed to behave. So they can keep out malicious code. So the problem with that, though, is if it doesn't know about the code, if it's never seen it before, then it just assumes it must be bad. And so, you have to add good code examples to it, and only Google can do that. So they put things in there that they believe are safe and that they've certified safe, and that's what Kaha allows to load in the web page. So when we go and do things like if for an app script in the HTML service, it's Kaha enabled, so it will only allow things that Google thinks are safe to be loaded in the page. So if you load a third-party library in there that it's never seen before, then it's going to say, no, that's not safe. I can't trust that. And so it won't allow the code to be loaded. It'll still load portions of the web page, but that code will just be stripped out of it. And so it just won't work. And so that can bring in some huge limitations in how you build your web applications if you're needing to do things that they simply don't allow or the Kaha doesn't allow. So that's one of the reasons why we've been talking a lot about drive hosting lately, because it does not have Kaha and allows you to do anything you would do on a normal HTML page.
Okay, thank you.
Pretty good?
Yeah, I think so. And so that's spelled C-A-H-A, I'm assuming, or?
Yeah, it's actually it's C-A-J-A, I think.
C-A-J-A. There you go.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah. So next slide, or?
Yeah, next slide. So which UI should you use? Again, large size matters. So large applications that have lots of data, lots of users, you want to use App Engine, or you want to use your own server. If you've got a powerful web server and you've got huge bandwidth and your routers can handle that, then your server may be a good option for large data processing applications. Medium to small apps, AppScript with the web app, or Google Drive. And then if you're inside of a spreadsheet or document, then add-ons or simply adding menus are the different choices that you have for UIs and the best practices for the UIs. Let's go next. Okay, so on the data processing, so now we've got a back end and we've got a front end. So somewhere in the middle, we've got to connect the two together, and we've got to make all that magic in the middle happen. So we have two solutions that we recommend. One is Google App Engine for doing the processing. So like I was saying before, anytime you're over 3,000 records in your database or spreadsheet, then you want to be using App Engine so that you can get the speed required to load the pages in a timely fashion. And it's not that it won't do it, but what you'll see is everything slow down. So what we commonly find out is we have clients that will build something in AppScript in HTML service, and it's meant to either connect to a database or a huge spreadsheet. And so they build it up and they're testing it out and it works great and they're thinking, wow, this is awesome, and it was so easy to build and all that. And then they start sticking some records in there, and they do an upload from wherever they were storing the data, and they get 4,000 or 5,000 records in there, and now all of a sudden their UI, when they go to load the page, is sitting there for 1.5 minutes or 2 minutes and not doing anything. And so that's just really a very poor user experience. So because users obviously, they want to click on a button, something happens now, not 2 minutes later. And so if you're trying to build into any kind of size, and that's kind of the standard we've set is 3,000 records. So 3,000 rows in a spreadsheet, 3,000 records in a database is kind of about as much as you can efficiently load in the front end. Now we have done some different applications that do an initial install where it brings over the whole database and stores it locally in the browser and then just does updates. That's another way around that, but I think we're thinking App Engine in most cases when you really want to do that. The other stuff ends up not working quite as well. The other good reason for App Engine is if you're thinking you're going to hit quotas. So with emails, you're depending on which Google Apps service you have a set quota that you can send. So it might be 1,500 emails a day is all you can send. But if your application needs to send more than that, if it's got a huge user base, then you might need to send more emails than that. And that's where you'd want to use App Engine, where you can just pay for the emails you're sending, but you can send as many as you want. Well, up to a point. I think there is still a point there, but you can ask for increases. So I think it's 25,000 a day at first, and then so if you're seeing more than 25,000 emails a day, though, that's interesting. I'd like to know what that use case is. And then if you're dealing with large file sizes, again, you don't want to try to shove a huge file through a Google Apps script because it's going to take too long to process. You're going to get timeouts, and it's going to end up being a poor user experience. Now, when AppScript is appropriate, so if you're working with, say, Google Forms, or you want to build a lightweight form yourself that's not a Google form, then absolutely excellent solution. It's fast and easy to work with. You don't have to worry about setup. Google App Engine has a lot of setup. So, and you have to have a local ID and a pretty high level knowledge of Java or .NET or Python, one of those languages, where AppScript is completely JavaScript and HTML based, so very fast to work with, so smaller data sets. And if it has to be free, because quite honestly, sometimes you just don't have a budget for stuff. So in smaller situations, AppScript is great, to use for those. You just want to be careful that you're not going to try to scale it to what it's not built to handle. Next slide. So let's do a couple use cases just to kind of get that kind of concrete in what you're thinking about. So your business has outgrown your old database app, and it needs to be accessible from mobile databases. So this is kind of the scenario we see all the time, that clients, they've got that old database. It's been kicking around for 10 years now, and they're just like, it still looks like it runs in DOS. We want something that's modern and it looks good, and we've got customers that are going to order from it, and it needs all this shopping cart stuff and things like that. And you're expecting it's going to be huge. Business is growing fast, and there's already 10,000 records in there. And so, this is something that you're moving to the cloud, but it's got to be highly available, and it's got to run like it was running on your server. So let's skip to the next slide there, and we'll see the solution. So as you probably guessed, the solution that we would recommend in this case would be Google App Engine for the front end, and the Google App Engine to do the processing, and they're kind of one and the same, but that would be what does the front end, and then we would say store the information in Cloud SQL as your back end, so that you have a complete cloud-based solution that is highly available, is replicated, backed up, and is scalable to whatever size you need. You just have to keep in mind that there is some cost to it. So next slide. So the next use case that I was wanting to go over here is your business has an application that would allow users to work with spreadsheets in an innovative new way. So you produced something interesting, and you want to bring it to everybody that uses spreadsheets, not just your people, but everybody. So the app requires authentication and data from your service. So you've got some back end running somewhere that is web accessible, and your users, they should be able to access the features from within the spreadsheet itself. And you want to deploy to millions of users that are using Google Apps, and you want to deploy that tomorrow. Okay, so let's skip to the next slide for the solution to that. And what we're thinking is, you're thinking, or what we would say is add-ons. Add-ons is the perfect solution for this kind of business, endeavor. Um, it's a new market. There's not a lot of apps out there yet. You can get high visibility for your application. It's built within a specific container, so you have to be careful about what you want to do with your app. You may not be able to do everything, but if your app is capable of doing a lot of the processing on the back end, and you're just displaying some choices on the front end, then you can do that from inside the spreadsheet and also manipulate the spreadsheet or document at the same time. And that can move you into an entirely new market. And we see a lot of people starting to do that. Most of the add-ons you see are existing solutions that have, like for instance, HelloSign. They were a solution that existed outside of documents, and now they have an add-on that puts them right inside that document. So that's definitely a great place. So use case 3, HR is nagging you about how much time it takes to process your change requests, right? And every admin gets these, right? Somebody wants to change their name, or they need their company information updated, their phone, they move to a different office and they need that changed, or those kinds of things. And those are stored in the domain. And you have to go in. It's an admin function. There are some other products out there on the market that allow you to do that and speed things up. But I just wanted to give you an example of how you can use one of these platforms to do that same thing. Let's see. Let's just skip to the next slide there. Yeah. So what we're looking for is you need an application that's going to verify the user and allow them to only change their info. So what we're going to basically do is, as you know, changing info on your domain is something only admins can do. But in this case, we want to put the burden on the user, not on you, and free you up to go do some other things. So we're going to build this little application, and I'm actually going to show you some of the code, and I'm hoping that the audio is going to work out, because I am going to have to switch back over for a few minutes to show you some of this in order to make it work. So what we're going to do is we're going to build a little bit of a UI, and I'll show you the code, or show you how the pieces go together, and show you just how easy it is to install one of these and make it run. So let's do this. I'm going to go ahead and turn on the screen share, and let's hope the audio is not terrible.
All right, let's see how.
All right, so we're still holding together there?
Yeah, the audio is a little choppy. Let's just push through it, guys. Apologize for the audio issues. We're just going to try and keep rolling through here and see if we can still show you guys some cool features.
I'm wondering if I crank down the. There. Is that any better at all?
Sounds about the same to me.
About the same. Okay, well, what I wanted to show you, and I'll just show you quickly this, and we'll switch back away from the screen share. But the change what we want to do is we want to change a user's last name. Say they got married and they want to change their last name. So we're going to provide an HR app that allows them to do this. It's hosted on AppScript, so you can see up here the address, script.google.com. You could also embed this as a gadget inside of your intranet on the Google site. So essentially, the user will load the page. We'll do a quick reload on the page, and it's going to go and it's going to look them up. It knows who they are because it's using their Google authentication. So it knows who the user is, and it found me. And so I want to do a. Sometimes I get these backwards, but I'll just switch them. The E and the I is always backwards, so I could switch that, and it would be it would be changed, and it's a change that happens immediately. You don't have to wait for that change. If I reload the page, we can see that my change is already submitted. I go, oh dang, that's actually not right. The E is supposed to be before the I in mine. So it allows the user to basically change in this case, change some information that's normally only accessible by an admin through a web UI here. Obviously, I'm running as an admin now, but if we were easily able to switch over to a different screen, your users can access in the same way. So let me just click over here quickly. The code that does the actual work in this application is 14 lines long. And actually, if we took out the white spaces, it would be less than that. So it's really not a lot of code to write. It's pretty straightforward what it does. It's going to identify the user based on their login, and it's only going to do the things that you allow them to do. Some of the important aspects are when deploying the app, it needs to execute as me, being a domain admin, and it has to be accessible to anyone within my domain. So that's part of the publishing part. It also uses a resource that is available through the developer console, which you have to go and you have to enable. It's a matter of basically clicking the links within there and clicking OK. It sets up the project for you, so there's not a lot of work there. And actually, what we could do is we'll come back to that. So that allows you to basically that solves this application. Let's jump back over to the slides there.
All right, do you want me to get back into the?
Shut that off so that you guys can hear me again. So let's jump back over to the slides.
Okay.
Yeah, if you could.
Just give me 1 second, and I'll turn my screen share back on. All right. Oops. All right. So are we? Here we go.
So essentially, what we've done is we've created an application in Google Apps Script that allows you to access the admin SDK and uses a UI that allows your users to change their last name. Runs as you. It only allows them to do this one certain function. So things like adding an alias could be something else you could do. There's a whole bunch of things you can do. I chose this one just because it was an easy example and it's not too sophisticated and something that might actually happen on your domain. So let's skip to the next slide. The other thing that we want to do is we see a lot of people needing to move the legacy forms like Lotus Notes, things like that, over to the cloud. You want them hosted, within your intranet, or maybe you want them publicly available if they're user type, client type forms. And in this case, you've been asked to have an email sent that gives them a thank you, and you want to record everybody's responses in a spreadsheet. So let's skip to the next slide. So in this case, we could use Google Forms. Google Forms does almost all these things. It definitely gives you a really easy way to build a form. It also saves the information in a spreadsheet, but it doesn't send the emails. So that's kind of an issue. So what we can do is we could build a script that will just intercept the form submission from the Google form and send an email from there. But in this case, we thought, well, the only other problem with Google Forms is it has Google's logo at the bottom, and sometimes that's not very desirable. Like when you have a very professional website and you want a customer to come and fill out the form, you don't want it to say Google at the bottom. It's just, it doesn't look good. You want your own custom clean look to your form. So we say, well, let's build a UI in AppScript, and that way you don't have all that branding and stuff. It does mean you have to do a little bit more work because you're writing some code instead of having some things you drag around on the screen in forms. But we do a lot of that, so I guess we look at it from the perspective that it's pretty easy to work with HTML. But it's something that's not terribly difficult to pick up for somebody that's at the admin level. We're going to have AppScript process the emails, and then we're going to save everything in a Google spreadsheet. So let's take a look at that solution. And this is actually a solution that we don't have to switch to screen share. I can just have you go ahead and type in that short URL, and it's going to load up the UI.
All right, James, you want me to go ahead and do it?
Sure, you could do it. Yeah, that'd be awesome.
Okay, cool.
Okay, so the first thing you notice is it's because it's running, it wants to know who you are in this case. You don't have to know who the person is to run this, but in this case, we do want to know who you are. And so we have a continue button that's going to use your Google authentication. We're assuming everybody's on Google that's watching the presentation today. And then, essentially we know your email address now, and we can save that, and then we're just asking for a name to get typed in, and you see you got a pop-up letting you know that you're using our application. And any application can run this way, and you can ask for these different authorizations to the different services, and so it works a lot like you see with the phone, with anything you install on your phone. It's going to say, well, it needs all these different permissions to run, and this is kind of the same thing you're going to see here, where we're using that authentication method. So, and if you could run over to your email and check your email.
Ooh, let's see. It's going to take me a second to find that. I've got a lot of tabs.
Putting you on the spot, huh?
All right.
There we go, right up at the top. And so, and of course, those of you that have filled out the form, you're going to be seeing the same screen here, where you're getting a thank you. We knew your name, so we were able to put your name in there and thank you. So you're getting a very customized letter. And down at the bottom, if you notice, we're also giving you access to the source code of the last name change that we had there. So let me quickly, I'm going to switch back to the screen share, and you guys are going to have to look over here, because once you do click on there and get that code, there's a couple of things I want to show you. So we'll just kind of run through it quickly. You guys able to see my screen there, Andy?
Yep.
Okay, so the first thing you want to do when you open it, it's going to be in read-only. So you want to click on Make File, Make a Copy, and it's going to make a copy. And there's that. You want to click on Resources, and of course this is being recorded, so you'll be able to watch this later. Resources and Advanced Services, and well, this is already on because I've already turned it on for this service, but if it wasn't on, I could turn it on, and then I can click on the Google Developer Console. It's going to create a new project for me here. I'm going to need to go to the admin SDK here and turn it on, and then I can close that window, and that allows me access to the admin SDK. And then what all I need to do for my users to use it is click Deploy the app. And I'm going to click the Save a New Version, so it saves the first version. I want it to execute as me, the admin of the domain, and then I'm going to allow just my domain to access it. And then I click Deploy. This URL right here is what I can send in a link, or put that link elsewhere on a page, or I can use that link to add the code as the Google gadget in a site's page. So that's all there is to installing it. And then that'll create a way for your users to change their last names if they like. All right, let's jump back to the presentation there.
Alrighty.
I think we're about.
1 second here.
Sorry about the audio, everybody.
All right. There we go.
I think we might be one more page.
Yep.
Okay. Yep. And so basically, that's all I got for you guys. A little code snippets there, and hopefully some good information about which platform you should choose when you're looking at moving these products or moving your existing applications over to the cloud, and how you're going to accomplish that without causing a lot of headache for yourself. Thanks a lot.
Awesome. Thanks, James. I'm going to show everybody that URL again so they can get a chance to try that out for themselves if they didn't catch it the first time. It's the goo.gl URL shortener, and then it's EY7JHF. So if you weren't able to see it, that's the URL. So thanks again, James. I'm going to hop over into my presentation now and switch pretty seamlessly. All right, so yeah, thanks again, James. Lots of really good information about the different platforms that you have available. Um, there's a lot of great options out there. I think it seemed like we had some really good questions that I want to try and get to. I think this is something that we touched on the first time around, the first time that we did this, and it's good to see people that are interested in getting into AppScript. So the question, a couple people asked this: if you're not if you haven't done any programming or coding in the past, what are some good resources, or tutorials to learn more about AppScript and these other different types of languages?
Well, I mean, I think the first thing to do is always just dig in and find out what's out there. And AppScript actually has one of the neat features about it is when you go and open AppScript, and you can get it from your Drive Create button, but you might have to add it through the add items in your Create button for Google Drive. When you open it up, the first thing it's going to do is it's going to ask you if you want to create a project, and it's going to give you a big list of different things. And so it'll actually put the code in there and be ready to go for you in something that's actually runnable. So you can see kind of how the different pieces go together and how they work. And so that's kind of right off from the front. It also, when you do start that menu, it's going to give you links to a bunch of different tutorials that are on the AppScript website. That's another great place. Of course, I've got 2 books out there. The first book, Enterprise Application is the UI service, which is the older way of doing things. And then the newer book that just came out this spring uses HTML service to build all of your applications. So those are both, I would say, if you've got a little bit of HTML experience, then and some JavaScript experience, then not high level, just a little bit, you kind of have a general idea how it works, then those books would be an excellent place to jump into. And if you don't know how it works, there's some great books out there by O'Reilly that can help you learn HTML and JavaScript very quickly. So that would be a great place to start for those things. The other place to look would be googlescriptexamples.com, which is a website that I partner with some of the other top contributors, and we have thousands of examples out there of different code pieces and different things you can do, and so that's a great place to look to.
Yeah, so that website's googlescriptexamples.com. That's an awesome website for those of you who would like to learn more about AppScript and those type of tools. Another question we got a question here about fusion tables. Someone wanted to know if fusion tables are still marked as an experimental feature by Google, because Mark is a little hesitant to build on top of a service or build a service on top of a product without the official stamp of approval from Google.
Absolutely. I mean, it's something that you should definitely take into consideration. We did see a lot of activity building on the ScriptDB platform, which was marked experimental, and that was around for I think maybe a year and a half or so, and now that's no longer being used. So if it does say experimental, then and you're planning on some kind of long-term project, then I would say you might want to look at something that's more supported. Things like I always come back to Cloud SQL because it's Google's model for storage. It's not going away anytime soon. It's a paid-for model, and it's definitely something that's going to be around to host your data. So yeah, if it's going to be a long-term project, I would say stay away from anything that says experimental, for sure.
Yeah, that's some good advice there. So in these questions, everybody, I'm seeing a lot of really specific use cases, and I don't want to get into too many of those because they don't really apply to everybody. So I'm going to see if I can find a couple of general ones. So one of the questions was, somebody wants to disable email forwarding, so you can disable email forwarding in the admin console, but you can only apply it to your entire domain. So somebody who's curious if they can disable email forwarding for their entire domain, but use AppScript or something similar to kind of work around it for a specific group of users. Do you know of anything?
I haven't seen that feature in the API. So yeah, AppScript only has what's available in the APIs.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, some of their stuff is more advanced, but in that case, the domain API, there's no calls to control that sort of thing from AppScript. So no, I mean, and I'm not sure on the admin panel. This would be something that maybe you could answer, Andrew. Is if they create a different OU, if that
Mm-hmm.
would allow them to do individual forward.
Yeah, I'm not sure off the top of my head if that's set at the domain level or the OU level. Yeah, so that's something that we can check out in a little bit. Let's see. I'm going to see if I can find anything else here. Like I said, guys, there's a lot of really specific questions here for specific use cases that I'm going to try to avoid. There's a lot of good resources out there. I think something that James mentioned, if you have a specific use case that you're looking for with AppScript, take a look at the APIs that Google makes available and see, take a look and see exactly what Google makes available. You can kind of see, what tools you can pair together, what features you can pair together, and that'll give you an idea of what's possible. Google locks a lot of things down with Google Apps, but there are some things that make available. It just takes a little bit of research to figure out what exactly is possible.
And we, of course, if you can contact us through appsforgaps.com, and we do consulting. So I mean, if you have a question that's on a larger project or something like that, where you just want to check in and just kind of get an expert opinion on if the direction you've chosen looks solid, in Google's platform, then definitely let us do a little bit of consulting for us, and I could save you some huge headaches down the road.
All right, I think that's all the questions that we're going to be able to get to for right now. Thanks again, James, for the great session. There was a lot of really good information. We're going to go ahead. I'm going to go ahead and go through the rest of my deck here, just to kind of wrap things up. So one last time for all of you who missed it at the beginning of the session, if you'd like to take a moment to just fill out this quick form to claim your Admin Training Week T-shirt and the free ebook, as well as the Nexus 7 that we're going to draw for in just a second. So please take a moment to fill out that quick form. So that's at googleguru.com/ATW1515. And while you're doing that, and while we're drawing for the winner, I'd just like to go ahead and thank our sponsors for the week. Once again, Uber Conference Spanning, Insightly, Synergize, Flash Panel, Cloud Sherpas, Backupify, and Virtue. They've been a huge help throughout the week and helped us promote the event, and can't thank them enough for their help. Along with those sponsors, we have a number of other Google Apps experts who have helped us promote the event this week. They've done a great job, and we're really appreciative of their help throughout the week. So with that, I'd like to go ahead and announce our fifth winner of the Nexus 7. So this session's winner is Marianne Bromette. Congratulations, Marianne. We will be in touch about claiming your Nexus 7. So congratulations. And with that being said, if you guys have any questions about this session in particular, or Admin Training Week, or just Google Apps in general, feel free to email me at andrew@guruvideos.com. If you have AppScript specific questions, please email James at appsforgaps.com. I'm sure he'll do his best to get to as many questions as he can. He's a busy guy, so. And I'd also like to encourage you guys to join our next session at 5 p.m. Eastern Time. That's in a couple of hours. Encouraging collaboration in Google Drive with Michael Spadaro. He's got a great presentation lined up. He did a Google Drive session during our first admin training week, and this one is a little bit different, and it's got a lot of great best practices for putting some power into your users' hands and allowing them to really take advantage of the Google Drive platform. So with that, I'd like to just say thanks again for stopping by for this session of Admin Training Week. I just want to apologize again for the slight delay and the audio issues that we ran into. We'll try and get all of that sorted out by the 5 p.m. session. So thanks again for joining, and we'll see you guys in a few hours. Thanks.